I move that the committee favorably report to the House the Select Committee's final report, which includes the committee's legislative recommendations and criminal referrals of Donald J. Trump and others, pursuant to Section 4A of House Resolution 503.
The question is on the motion to favorably report to the House. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
January 6th panel voting in favor of 4 criminal referrals against former President Trump during their final meeting this afternoon. What a joke. This is Congress's first criminal referral against any president, former or sitting. However, the move is largely symbolic and was telegraphed as Nancy Pelosi handpicked the members of this committee who had already drawn their unfounded conclusions. For more on this, let's bring in Professor Emeritus of Harvard Law School, author of Guilt by Accusation, Alan Dershowitz. Great to see you, sir. This proceeding was always a political exercise as it disallowed any alternative point of view other than guilty. It also failed to examine the security lapses and those responsible for those lapses, as those people who were responsible were reliably anti-Trump. Fair analysis on my part?
Yes, but it's even worse than that. The referral by a congressional committee vote to the Justice Department violates 3 provisions of the Constitution. Number 1, Article 1 of the Constitution gives Congress only the power to legislate, not the power to prosecute or to refer cases to the Justice Department. Second, there's a specific prohibition against bills of attainder. Bills of attainder were British votes taken by Parliament to name specific individuals and to prosecute them. And there's only one exception to this, and that is the 14th Amendment, which gives Congress the power to enforce the prohibition against anybody holding office who engaged in insurrection of the kind that took place during the Civil War. The action by this congressional committee is in clear violation both of the letter and spirit of the Constitution. And not only should the Justice Department ignore the referral, it should rebuke the committee for interfering with the separation of powers in our system of checks and balances.
Well, that would take a Department of Justice with integrity, and we don't have that either. But how disturbing is it, Professor, to know that leftists are so willing to shred the Constitution and all of government's credibility out of fear of President Trump and his America First policies?
Well, that's the problem today. I have a book coming out called Get Trump, in which I argue that one of the greatest dangers to democracy is how people, particularly on the left, have ignored the ACLU, have ignored the Constitution and shredded it in an attempt to get Trump. Look, I'm not a Trump supporter. I voted against him twice. I intend to vote against him a third time if he runs in 2024. But I am a supporter of the Constitution, and I put the Constitution before any politics, unlike Congresswoman Cheney and some of the others who put partisanship and ideology before the Constitution. And I think it's absolutely essential to preserve the Constitution. Look, I don't like that Donald Trump said that he thought the election being unfair may give people the right to ignore the Constitution. He was wrong. The Democrats are wrong. Everybody who wants to violate the Constitution to achieve partisan benefits is wrong. And we civil libertarians, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, left or right, should be fighting to preserve the Constitution.
Right. And Mr. Trump is on record saying that his Truth Social post in that regard was misinterpreted, but I'll leave it up to the folks out there. They can go onto Truth Social and have a look at it for themselves and judge for themselves. The latest Twitter files provide more evidence of FBI malfeasance, Professor. As many as 80 FBI agents were assigned to allegedly monitor foreign interference on social media, but instead, as is typical of all-powerful government, they turned their censorship efforts against constitutionally protected speech of Americans, overwhelmingly right-leaning American political speech. Currently, there is no severe punishment on the books for this kind of breach of trust in government. Shouldn't there be?
Of course there should be. There's no doubt that it is an important power of government to prevent government officials from putting the thumb on the scale of private social media companies. Social media companies have the right to do whatever they want to do. They're private. But when the government tells Twitter or tells Facebook or tells any other social media what to say, what to censor, what not to do, it violates, again, the spirit of the First Amendment. And it also denies the people of this country transparency because the government is doing it in a hidden way. They're not overtly saying to these social media companies to censor. They're putting a thumb on the scale quietly. And so we have the worst of all possible worlds. We have government censorship without accountability.
Yeah, and it is devastating to the premises articulated in that Constitution, which expressly forbids the government from doing such things. Professor Dershowitz, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for catching up, sir.